It's Friday, and you know what that means.
Yeah.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 367 of everyone's favorite wrestling podcast, the F and Marks.
I'm Jay. He is.
As the name connotation says, I am the brainless one.
Yes, he is.
And a very interesting week of professional wrestling we have to get to. I cannot believe that I'm actually going to be mentioning this right off the bat in the podcast. We have a new TNA World Heavyweight Champion.
We do.
It's so amazing that 8 years that we've been doing this for, and I don't think I remember any point where we would kick off with something like that, or even bring it up anywhere in the podcast. But
right.
But the things are changing. Like wrestling is at a very strong point that it's one of the strongest points it's ever been in, at least since the Attitude Era, or the days of like the territory days. But there's a lot of thriving companies out there in the landscape of professional wrestling.
Yeah.
Speaking of other promotions, we do have a former WWE star who re-signed with AEW this week. We had a former NWA Women's World Champion also finally debut on Dynamite this week. Finally. And we have some news about some current WWE superstars whose contracts may or may not be expiring soon, and another wrestler whose contract is being discussed for an extension. All sorts of good shit going on in wrestling this week. Is there anything in particular, Cousin Jay, do you want to talk about first? Or in the words of Cody Rhodes, so, what do you want to talk about?
I think off the top, I think some of these things will flow into each other.
Yeah.
CM Punk allegedly wants to restructure his deal with WWE. This is a deal that is not very old. Like literally like signed in like November.
Yep.
And here we are like 8 months later, wants to restructure the deal. And oh, by the way, he has been out with an injury for 6 months of it.
And he's wrestled one live televised match.
And when I first read that headline, certainly the thing in my head, like, oh, here we go. Dam's breaking. And then when you find out what it's all about, you're like, that's very interesting. Very interesting.
Very interesting.
CM Punk wants to restructure his deal because it sounds like he wants to work at WWE for the rest of his life. Apparently, like he wants to be the one when Shawn Michaels is ready to, go home forever. He wants to take over NXT. He wants to raise the next generation of superstars to get them ready for going up to the big leagues. I'm super skeptical with CM Punk and, with how things ended in WWE, then in AEW. I'm like, I don't think this dude's changed all that much. The tone that I'm hearing from this sounds like maybe he has changed, and maybe it was all the BS going on behind the scenes in All Elite Wrestling that caused him to go off his rocker. Maybe it was.
And you got to think about the fact that he walked out when he did 10 years ago, when he walked out right after the 2014 Royal Rumble. And there was a lot of speculation about that. And it's like, why could he walk out of that and then get fired from AEW? He did an interview earlier this week, and he had said, boy, I'll tell you, if the old guard was here, I don't think I would have returned to WWE. And he had also mentioned in the same interview that if the management group that was in charge now was there 10 years ago, he doesn't think that he would have went through the same shit where he was wrestling injured, he was burnt out, and all this stuff. And I'll tell you, it's starting to go hand in hand with what a lot of like what Randy Orton said about Vince McMahon and how happy he was that Vince was to get out of office, out of the position that he was in, because Orton had the issues with his back, and Vince is like, "Nah, pal, we need you out there." And it's
Right.
like, and it's really starting to think that maybe the guy who solely responsible for what professional wrestling is today was really the best and worst thing that's ever happened to professional wrestling.
I would say saying he's solely responsible is putting an awful lot on him. I think that's a bit too much. I mean, there were a bunch of other people who had performed. He may have been the catalyst. There's other people involved in changing the culture.
I just, for me, just because of the fact that he went from taking it from a territorial thing, which honestly I did enjoy, and obviously with the Tales from the Territory, you find out a lot about those territories that Vince took out. It would have been a lot of fun to watch, but I mean, he did take it from it being a territorial thing to a nationwide thing, and now, we went from possibly, WrestleMania not working out at the first WrestleMania when he put up a mortgage on his house, to them being in the United Kingdom this week discussing the possibility of hosting WrestleMania in the United Kingdom. I just think from that perspective, like Vince is very much a big, huge one of.
Okay, I was misunderstanding you. I thought you were talking about CM Punk.
Oh no, I was talking about no. Vince McMahon is like the catalyst of what professional wrestling has become. That's on me. No, I think with CM Punk coming back with Vince out was the best thing that's ever happened to WWE. I really do think I'm one of those people, and I'll say this because I was a huge fan of his. I've been a fan of his since his Ring of Honor days. I enjoyed his work, and I was very upset to see him leave. And I'm actually glad that everything worked out and to see him back in WWE because he belongs here. He just fits in. He meshes well with WWE. And something like that wasn't going to happen if Vince McMahon was still in office. I'm convinced of this. If Vince was still in charge, we wouldn't have CM Punk. There's a lot of things, and I could sit here and list them all, the things that we wouldn't have right now if Vince was still in charge. Maybe I can list all those things off that Vince McMahon, all the things we wouldn't have if Vince McMahon was still around.
Yeah,
but
maybe
honestly,
there's a list or something that you sometimes do that maybe
and honestly
could address this.
And honestly, I think this is great for WWE too. Because not for nothing, Shawn Michaels, like we saw this week on Monday, it was just his birthday, and he's not a spring chicken. Not to say that what he's doing down in NXT is not good. I've enjoyed the hell out of what they've been doing in NXT. They have a lot of good young talent. They probably have the best women's division in all of wrestling right now, and they're still waiting for Julia and Stephanie Vacour to show up. But I think that getting somebody like CM Punk, we've seen it. He's been posting. He's been doing all this stuff with all the young kids. Carmelo Hayes said that CM Punk was influential for him. Trick Williams said he was very influential to him. I mean, we know about how he feels about how Roxy and Cora Jade feel about CM Punk. He's very much seen. He's very much around the training facility, the performance center. He's offering insight to people. He's mentoring these people. I think that him running NXT would be a great thing once Shawn Michaels finally retires his lazy eye and just goes off into the sunset. Especially if it means that we're going to get Cousin Chris possibly at NXT too.
Hey, that would be great.
But I am all for CM Punk. If he went from this time last year where he was absolutely miserable, not getting along with his coworkers because he worked with children who shouldn't be running a Target, let alone be EVPs, to him going, this is where I want to be. I am happy where I'm at. I want to sign a lifetime contract with WWE. I want to help mold the new generation of superstars that come into this place. And as somebody who's been a CM Punk fan for pretty much 20 years, I'm all for it. And I'm happy. A happy Pepsi Phil makes it a happy brainless one.
If I were WWE and he was asking for that, I would definitely put a lot of kind of requirements on that. Just again, he has walked out of companies a couple times and or blew up the bridge a couple times. I would need to see more years and more time of him, like where I could trust that he is not going to, nuclear bomb the place.
Right.
Because he has a bad day or a bad few days. I have not seen him behind the scenes in WWE outside of what they've shown us. Because when he was in AEW, even like, hey, best year of wrestling in my life. That is a quote from him. Most happy I've been in pro wrestling. You would hear things out in the background. That's not true. I like Tony. I love Tony. Things are great here. And then 6 months later,
I go into business with an empty-headed dumb fuck like Hangman Page. That's what we get.
But Chris, like you're saying you think those days of Phil are gone. Literally, they happened less than a year ago. Less than a year ago. So I similar to when they brought back Kurt Angle, Vince would not put him in the ring right away because of what had happened before. And not that long before that, Kurt was still having issues with substances, getting DUIs, having issues with painkillers. He had all sorts of things. Vince needed to see him clean and sober for a little while before he's like, all right, you could go back in the ring. I would need to see CM Punk be a good soldier for a while. If he wants to restructure the deal, you put in things in there that are either incentive-based, where it's like, if you do this, we will give you, more latitude. If you continue to do this, we will give you more latitude. But I would not just like, yes, here's the keys to the kingdom, Phil. 10 years after you walked out.
I can understand that.
Forgiven. We think that you are the future of the company.
I can understand that. And I wouldn't be opposed if that was something that WWE wanted to do with Pepsi Phil, is that, hey, man, you have a reputation. You weren't, like you said, just 2 years ago, you were just saying how wonderful and great everything was in AEW. And then, it all took a turn after a promo that Hangman Page did. What makes us think that it's not going to happen again? Like, let's say Seth Rollins says something inappropriate. I mean, we saw Drew McIntyre take his picture with Jungle Boy.
Cry me a river. It's a photo. Cry me a river.
I mean, all it will take is somebody just to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, and I can understand like him snapping and like, all right, shit, this is the Phil we're used to. This is the guy that walked out on us 10 years ago. This is the guy that slapped the shit out of the freaking Jannetty boys and after All Out 2 years ago, and they haven't recovered since.
And choked the jungle jerk off. Chris, as much as you're saying before it was primarily Vince that was the problem, again, I go back to it was less than a year ago that CM Punk caused an issue in the locker room. Yeah, he had an immature little piece of crap that he was dealing with, but he was supposed to be the locker room leader. And how do you say that you're the locker room leader by like, was that enough of a freaking big deal to go and punch and or choke somebody out? I don't think so, in my view.
See, you and I are in different, areas of that, because I too would have choked the crap out of freaking Jungle Boy because, well, you know me, I don't like Jungle Boy, the Jannetties. Or
like, if you understand that it's an immature kid, you sit there and be like, what the hell's your problem? Like, you need to cut that crap out.
Again, I agree with you, but also in a situation like that, somebody like Tony should actually get up and grow a fucking pair and be the boss. That's AEW's biggest problem. That is why I stopped watching AEW a year ago. I cannot fathom watching a product where some coked out billionaire's kid is just shelling out millions of dollars to people who really don't deserve it, who don't even get on TV. And booked for the sickos. He admitted it. He books for the sickos. You know, and I blame Tony for what happened. I'm not justifying what Punk did, but I do blame Tony more so than anybody else. Because we all know that Vince, at the end of the day, would have nipped it in the bud. That shit never would have happened in WWE. There's too many locker room leaders there. It's just a bunch of frat boys.
At this point.
At this point, yes.
If you went back 5 years ago, it was John Cena and maybe Randy Orton. Like Roman Reigns had not gotten there yet. Undertaker was on his way out.
Right.
You know, at this point, yes, there are a bunch of locker room leaders. Like, so it could deal with him more. All that being said, Chris, like, yeah, Tony was the problem. But again, CM Punk has shown multiple times that he will blow up wherever he is if things aren't going his way.
Yeah.
He did it in WWE. And oh, by the way, Triple H was one of the people that he got really pissed off at.
His doofus son-in-law, as he's so eloquently referred to.
Not even just because he was Vince's son-in-law. It's like when Punk was at his hottest, Triple H, you know, had like one match in 6 months, and he specifically came back so he could beat CM Punk. And I read an interview recently where it was more or less admitted, yes, Triple H did that to show him who's boss. Even though Punk was hotter than anything, he's like, all right, let's see what this little prick could do. See how he's going to react to this. And he didn't react well. Now, clearly they've buried the hatch between them. And if nothing else, at least professionally, they seem to be getting along fine. But again, I do not have trust in CM Punk. He's, again, blown up 2 places.
I can understand that. I think because for me, I'm just a huge Punk fan, so I'm more inclined to, you know, look the other way for certain things. But I agree. I think that with his reputation, that you take it very cautiously with what he does, especially when he's talking about a new contract and being here for life. Because God only knows what kind of money because I've seen the new contracts that they're handing out to people. The fact that Roman Reigns is making Mercedes Moné money is ridiculous. How dare Roman Reigns think he deserves as much money as Mercedes Moné? He's not nearly the draw, the attraction, or the spectacle that is Sasha Mercedes Moné Banks.
Yeah.
But like I would personally, I would do it because he seems happy. Obviously, we just play the waiting game because when's the other shoe going to drop? And I think it's unfortunate for Phil that he has this reputation upon him so that people just expect, okay, Phil, when's the other shoe going to drop? Because that's usually what happens. It's what happened in WWE. It's what happened in AEW. I don't think he was in Ring of Honor. I don't think he really had any issues in Ring of Honor. I know he had issues with some of the people in Ring of Honor because they left for Impact. Or TNA, I should say. But it's the problem with Phil is that he's got a reputation because of things he did in his past. I'm one of those people that think, okay, maybe we can give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he has changed. He's gotten older. He's married. He's got a dog that they're selling merchandise for. Maybe he's turned that new leaf. Maybe
I'd like to believe it.
I would too. And it's mainly because I'm a Punk fan, but it's also because I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that maybe, just maybe, it was just a bad situation that he was in, and he's just doing what he can to better it. And with new ownership and management in WWE, he could be that better person.
I hope so. Again, I would just put some kind of guidelines in if they do restructure a deal to say, you must do these things for us to gain our trust in you. And that's where I will end it.
Okay, fair. But, since we are on the contracts, there's one I really wanted to sink my teeth into, and that's Buddy Matthews getting a new contract with AEW this week.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of rumors going around a lot lately that Buddy Matthews, Malachi Black, Keith Lee, and Miro, all their contracts are going to be expiring soon, and they all want to go back to WWE. Now, it made a lot of sense for somebody like a Buddy Matthews and Malachi Black to go back to WWE because their significant others, their wives, are in WWE. Same thing with Keith Lee. I'm not gonna speak negatively of Keith Lee, but with his issues that he has, I know he's got some health issues that he really should take care of. I don't see him going back to WWE. And honestly, has he really done anything in his AEW run to really warrant oh God, we got to bring back Keith Lee? And it's nothing personal. I think he's a tremendous human being, and I think he's an incredible talent. Fast as hell for a guy his size, and can move, and very strong. Had a great showing in that Survivor Series where it looked like he was going to beat Roman when it was NXT versus Raw versus SmackDown. But Buddy Matthews, I was like, oh yeah, he's a guarantee. He's a lock. Oh, apparently not. He gets a new contract.
Not so fast, my friend.
So he tells AEW that he wants to be taken out of his contract that he's had, and they asked him, are you going to go back to WWE? And he goes, yeah. And they're like, no, we're not going to let you out of your contract. So instead, they offered him a substantial amount of money to stay in AEW. I could sit here and talk about all the different people that AEW has dropped the ball with. Have they really done anything with Buddy Murphy? We've talked about this at length. In your career, whether you are a wrestler, a manager, a referee, an announcer, what signature moment sticks out the most for what you have done in your run and wherever you are? My big thing is, what has he done? Not to say that he has done anything. I'm really putting myself in one of those catch-22 situations, because it's like, yeah, he didn't really do much in WWE either. His most substantial thing was he had that storyline where he was technically with Ray's daughter. But, I mean, really, what has he done in AEW? What has Tony done to book Buddy Murphy to a point where he's like, no, you can't go back to WWE. I won't let you.
I think it has more to do with he loves the faction. If he's going to pay Buddy Murphy that much money, or Buddy Matthews, he'll probably pay Malachi Black even more. Keep that faction together. And what this signals to me is the rumors that are out there that a deal in primary principle has been agreed to with Warner Brothers Discovery. Like, as much as it has not been officially announced, I don't think he's going to be offering contracts like this unless he knows that money's coming in. So I think that deal is imminent. And I think Buddy Matthews got lucky at the right time. A couple times now. He got lucky in who he's married to, and now getting a big money deal, having to, work in a schedule that is far less punishing on his body long term than what WWE's schedule will do. Again, Triple H has changed things for the much better, where you don't have people grinding themselves into nothing, looking like, Andy's hammer at the end of Shawshank Redemption.
Right.
It's different, but it's like, hey, I only got to wrestle twice a week, and I'm going to make this much money. Cool. All right. I don't need to be part of the Spooky Pals. I'm in AEW Spooky Pals. I know that's not as illustrious, but I'm getting paid.
AEW Spooky Pals. And what did we establish the Wyatt Six for? They're the creepy pals?
They're the creepy pals.
The spooky pals, the creepy pals, and I got to come up with something for the Malachi Black's House of Black. I'll come up with some kind of pals for them. Pal.
I mean, they could be the terror pals. I don't know.
The spooky pals, the creepy pals, and the scary pals. Ooh. See, they need Danhausen.
Pals.
And that's another one that frickin' Tony Khan doesn't know how to frickin' book properly. Dude's got to lay off the coke. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah.
Tim had a couple of very strongly worded comments in the chat. Fuck Sasha Banks.
Okay. Fair enough.
And then he said, and again, I say, fuck Sasha Banks. Agreed.
See, I'd be more inclined to give CM Punk a lifetime contract than I would to Sasha Banks. Because, yes, as much as Punk was a pain in the ass and he walked out of WWE once, she walked out of WWE twice. Twice. Because she thinks she's a bigger deal than what she really is. Sorry. I'm not sorry. I don't see it. She's not a draw. If you look at the numbers, every single week they do a Dynamite and she's on the show. She's a ratings killer. They have three of them.
It's like having Joe Biden on the ticket.
Her, Jericho, and please don't get me into Jericho right now, and a tie between Nick and Matt Jackson. They are the four ratings killers.
They're the pillars of ratings death.
Yeah, they're the pillars of ratings death. Because you look at what they did for 250, and because I saw the numbers and everything, and the entire time, that whole 1 hour between MJF and Will Ospreay was steady. They might have fluctuated a few thousand here or there, but it was steady number for an hour, which is impressive in its own right.
And I get they're having to rematch it all in.
Right.
But
and honest to goodness, I'm not surprised by this. Because MJF is a draw. MJF brings people and eyeballs to the screen. And say what you will about Will Ospreay, I still respect the hell out of that dude. That dude is a hell of a performer. Him and MJF killed it for an hour. I saw the clips. I refused to watch the match. I may at some point, go and watch that match. I don't know if I can, subject myself to watching an hour of wrestling and then have MJF put a freaking gas mask on because he ran out of oxygen. But Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart can go an hour and 3 minutes at WrestleMania 12 and not ask for a single, gasp of air. All the freaking marathons that freaking Ric Flair has done in his life. Really? But we're going to put the gas mask on. But anyway, as soon as that was over, the ratings hit the toilet because the four people who showed up after that match, and they all killed the ratings and they all dropped them, were the Learning Tree Chris Jericho, the $15 million Mercedes Moné, and the Young Bucks. They didn't have the viewers that they were expecting for Blood and Guts because they were in it. They're not draws. She is definitely not a draw. But honestly, I would really like to know how much Buddy Murphy made. I'm sorry, Buddy Matthews made in this contract that he got from AEW. And hey, power to him. If he's going to get paid, he's going to get paid.
Good for him.
Yeah. And honestly, he's come a long way from being in that tag team with, what was it, Wesley Blake. And they had, and the highlight of that was Alexa Bliss was their manager.
Yeah, Balake.
Yeah, Balake.
Alexa Bliss?
Yes.
Yep.
Blake and Murphy.
Balake.
Yes.
All right, so I don't know if you saw this week. Trying to fuse all of this together. There was a video, I think it was on Instagram, with Rhea Ripley and Dom Mysterio to Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now from Starship, with Dominic Mysterio doing like dances and all that stuff, trying to win Rhea back. Did you see it, Brainless One?
I have not. but I need to see this video now.
All right, I will send it to you after the show. It was spectacular.
What can you refresh my memory? Because
Spectacular. Like Dom Mysterio going like, you got to see it.
You got to refresh. See it. I got to see it. You got to refresh my memory. How does that song go? Because I feel like I have it in my head, but it's like I'm drawing
and we can build this dream together.
Okay.
Yeah. From Mannequin.
Oh,
the movie Mannequin.
I've seen that movie too. Yes.
Yes.
Holy cow! 10 out of 10. I need to see this now. I enjoyed, and I'll tell you, I've enjoyed this whole storyline, this whole Liv, Rhea, Dom, love triangle. I'm telling you right now, watch out for the X Factor in all of this, Finn Balor.
With the way they have this storyline, quite honestly, at this moment, the most compelling stuff, like as much as Cody and the Bloodline are doing fine, like Rhea and Dom and Liv, CM Punk and Drew McIntyre and Seth Franklin Rollins and Wyatt Six for me are my three favorite storylines going in WWE at the moment. Even though I find it strange that the Wyatt Six are a bunch of horror characters in their faces, but I guess it's just the rub that they're getting from Bray Wyatt.
Right. See,
but Liv Morgan did go viral this week because she was wearing Daisy Dukes and did a twirl.
I mean, good enough reasons to go viral, right? Am I right? Am I right? Am I right? Right. Yeah,
but several really good storylines going on concurrently, and it's going to culminate into what should be, as long as the matches pay it off, next level SummerSlam.
SummerSlam is going to be ridiculous.
The only thing that could ruin it is Cleveland. And I hope what happened to poor Johnny Gargano's family's restaurant is not, I hope it's not a harbinger of things to come, you know, when WWE officially descends on the land that Cleveland rocks, the land of Pedro Serrano, the Wild Thing, Mitchell Friedman.
Rue Baker.
Yeah.
And they're doing I think they're doing a 6-pack challenge, or they're doing a gauntlet match or whatever it is to determine the number one contenders for the DIY Tag Team Championships. And I know that you know for a fact that one of those 6 participants of those tag teams, Nicole, is very much thrilled that they're part of that whole 6-man shimmy.
They were on the list last week.
I saw that
they were on the list.
That's something. Is this like their way of trying to keep Angel Garza? I mean, they've already kept Angel Garza. It's like, are they trying to convince Humberto Carrillo to re-sign so he can work occasional SmackDowns and NXTs and stuff, and not go to AEW and get lost in the shuffle where he's in a quasi decent storyline and then ends up fighting some random dude that they pull out of a freaking hat from CMLL
or Marco
on Rampage or Marco Stunt, yes. But I honestly, just from what they've announced so far, with Gunther and Priest and Liv and Rhea, Nia Jax and Bayley, Punk and Drew with Seth Rollins as the referee, Cody versus Solo. It's a solid card. And they're going to add the tag team championships, whether they defend them at SummerSlam on Saturday. I know that Triple H is going to do everything he can to make sure his favorite wrestler, Johnny Gargano, has a wrestling match in Cleveland on the pay-per-view. But I think they ultimately defend the titles on the SmackDown before, because that seems to be the route that they go in situations like that. And, I forgot. They're doing LA Knight versus Logan Paul.
Yeah.
Let me talk to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That card is
on the Paul front. I'm very happy that Jake won last weekend, so that way when Mike Tyson beats his ass in November, it's not going to be like, Mike waited until after he got his butt kicked by someone else. No, Mike Tyson is going to knock that dude the hell out. I'm going to sit there at Thanksgiving dinner with my parents and my mother-in-law and be like, that boy good. He's good.
Mm-hmm. Good and terrible.
Mm.
The greatest misjustice in the history of life will happen if Mike Tyson loses to Jake Paul.
Yes.
As the legendary greatest wrestling gimmick of all time, Gorilla Monsoon, once said, it is a miscarriage of justice if Jake Paul beats Mike Tyson.
Yes.
I don't care if Mike Tyson's almost 60 or if he's actually 60 or whatever it is and he's not the same. Mike Tyson shouldn't be losing to bums like Jake Paul. Jake Paul should be doing Pizza Hut commercials where he's getting knocked out by slices of pizza like he did in the first round in a fight against Mike Tyson. Like they did to whatever that dude was that they did back in the 90s. Where they did the stuffed crust. They turn the crust aside and the pizza hits him in the face and he falls over. I forget who it was, but he got his 15 seconds of fame after he got knocked out in 15 seconds.
And to bridge all this together even more, Evander Holyfield's son will be trying out for WWE during SummerSlam weekend. His son looks like an absolute beast. I mean, he could follow in the steps of like what they did with Braun Breaker. Somebody who is like a legit college athlete who can kick people's butts and get him in that door. You could even give him the real deal gimmick. Now, if he's trying to get out of his dad's shadow, he may do like Braun Breaker and like, I'm gonna make it on my own. But I mean, the dude is super jacked.
Yeah, he
certainly will be able to physically do a lot of the stuff. Whether or not he'll grasp all the other nuances and what have you, that's yet to be seen, but that could be very interesting down the line.
I think it's a great move. You brought up a really good comparison with what they did with Braun Breaker, because yes, he did play college football at Kennesaw State. He was a running back there. And look at how he's transformed into the wrestling ring. He's been there, I think, in the business like 3 years. And look at what he's done. He's going to, and I think that's another one. I think they announced Braun Breaker versus Sami Zayn for the Intercontinental title at SummerSlam. He's going to win too. Braun Breaker's going to win that belt at SummerSlam. I don't care what anybody says. The kid's going to get a huge
win when they had the match at Money in the Bank.
I think we both did. I think we both actually put that Braun Breaker was going to win, and we were both wrong, and it happens. But I just think about how some of these athletes have kind of transitioned into professional wrestlings, because it's not even just him. Because, like, look at Trick Williams. I know that people are saying he's still a little green in the ring, but he's got a great presence about him, and he gets a reaction from the fans, and he does. He's incredible. He's great on the mic. I think he's above average in the ring. He could be a little bit better, but Roman Reigns wasn't the greatest wrestler his first few years in the ring either. But like, he was a boxer, and he played football at South Carolina. Obafemi, I think he did either the shot put or he was a weightlifter, and He's down at NXT, and my God, Jay, you want to talk about a specimen who can. I've never been more impressed with a big man in my life than Obafemi. He is just doing some incredible things down there. And it's not even just the fact that he's working like the big dudes, because like him and Duke Hudson, they were saying Duke Hudson had the best match of his run in WWE in that match against Obafemi. He had a great match with Wes Lee for the NXT North American Championship, and Wes Lee's the size of his freaking forearm.
Right.
So I admire all of the wrestlers that they have brought, all the athletes that they brought in who have done things outside of the wrestling realm and have turned them into wrestlers.
Look at Bianca Belair.
Another one is Sol Roca. I want to say she was a gymnast. She's got one of the coolest finishers ever. She does that bad, I forget what it's called, but my God, it's so fun. And she's a lot of fun to watch down there. Kalani James is another one. She was another athlete that was in college that they transitioned into a wrestler. And look at them. They're doing great things with these athletes and then turning them into wrestlers. So for somebody like Evander Holyfield's kid, yeah, it's very much a possibility. It's all going to be depending on whether or not he wants to be more like Braun Breaker or if he wants to be more like Gable Stevenson. Because Breaker, Obafemi, Trick Williams, these are the guys who are willing to learn the craft, to do everything they have to. It's not just come in, punch in, do your job, and go home. It's about working late, trying your best to make yourself better as a performer. And clearly, if Gable's, and the thing with Gable Stevenson, it just didn't look like he had that drive or the desire that the other wrestlers had. And he pissed off Kurt Angle.
Yeah. Well, with Mr. Gargano's restaurant burning down, I think this leaves, maybe Luigi Primo needs a job now. He cannot make pizzas for Mr. Gargano. He should go to the WWE tryout at SummerSlam. I need me some Luigi Primo in WWE.
I need to know if the I need to know if the Danhausen is actually a free agent, because I know he's been doing a lot of GCW stuff and a lot of independent promotions all over the world, not even just in the country, and all over the world. Because if he is not under contract with AEW, I need him to show up at that tryout too. You can have your Luigi Primo, that's fine. I need my Danhausen. He is very nice and he's very evil, and I don't want to send him $6 so he can afford his blimp. Although with the money that they're handing out between AEW and WWE, I'm sure he could buy his blimp with one contract.
So Tim in the chat says, if Mike Tyson loses, this is going to happen.
Hey, I'm not the one that said it. It was Tim Kirchin that said it. That is the greatest gimmick. He said the two greatest gimmicks in wrestling history are Gorilla Monsoon and The Undertaker. And who am I to argue with Tim Kirchin? Just say.
He's Tim Kirchin. Yeah.
He did say that there is nothing more terrifying than the thought of a monsoon full of gorillas. That's my favorite. I'm sorry, Jay. That's my favorite video ever. Every time I see it, it just brings just a tear to my eye. With a tear in my eye. That is the best video ever. I love that video. I do. I get a chuckle every time I see it.
Well, he's like laughing his head off. It's the monsoon gorillas.
Yeah, Tim Kirchin. Oh, the only other videos that I get a better pop from are when Brock Lesnar tells Hulk Hogan, "Party's over, Grandpa." The tea time with Santino with Sheamus, and when Hulk Hogan is in court and he tells the judge, the jury, and everybody that Terry Bollea does not have a 10-inch penis, but Hulk Hogan does. I had to mention it. I'm sorry. It's Hulk Hogan, man.
It is.
He's a real American, brother.
All right. So one thing, again, that I think lends credence to AEW perhaps signing a new deal with Warner Brothers Discovery. Warner Brothers Discovery had their matching deal with TNT rejected. The NBA is going to Amazon. So that leaves an awful lot of primetime content and holes that they will have to have filled. And you'd rather have something that you know will at least perform in some way, shape, or form. I mean, AEW at least does some numbers for them. Otherwise, what are they going to get in its place that will do the same thing they do, unless they sit there and rerun another episode of The Big Bang Theory?
You mean the actual pillars of AEW, The Big Bang Theory?
They do that.
I would much rather. Well, this is coming from me.
I think this means that there's money for AEW. That's why they. You'd rather have Sheldon Cooper.
Yeah, exactly.
You'd rather have Sheldon Cooper.
Of course. And I don't even watch The Big Bang Theory. I'd rather watch that than AEW. I mean, and it's like,
yeah.
I'm sorry. I've had a long week of dealing with AEW fans just absolutely verbally assaulting me all over every form of freaking social media. They're coming after me on Facebook. They're coming after me on Instagram. They're coming after me on Twitter. It's to the point now where Twitter has become so toxic. I'm on there for like 10 seconds and then I'm like, I gotta go. And it's not even just the AEW stuff either. It's just a whole lot of stuff going on that I don't really want to see. And it's just bothersome because I'm just like, this is why I get off of this shit all the time. But the fact that people are like, oh, it's amazing because, AEW's got to compete with the NBA, and that's why the ratings always in the toilets on Wednesdays. And it's like, really? Because the WWE hasn't been going up against Monday Night Football with Raw for over 30 years, right?
They do end up taking a big hit. Yeah.
But it's like, they were competing with WCW back in the day in the late 90s. There was always competition for WWE. I just don't understand why these people are like, the AEW fans are like, oh, well, they're going up against the NBA. Oh, they're going up against the Stanley Cup Finals or the playoffs. Oh, they were going up against, the NCAA Elite Eight.
There was one guy against Ice Dancing.
There was one guy that actually, I can't make this shit up. This is how stupid the AEW faithful are. There was actually a dude tweeting at Joe Biden to reschedule his announcement that he made on Wednesday to to Thursday because there was no wrestling on. They are insufferable, Jay. They tweeted out at the president and said, hey, you know what? You can have this important announcement that you have to make, but don't do it on Wednesday at 8 o'clock. We have to get our fill of freaking Mercedes Moné and the Young Bucks. Like, they were really concerned that the president was going to take away ratings from that abomination that they called Blood and Guts.
Oh, just so you can hear a man who can't even speak English anymore. He can speak applesauce. Man. You know what? Like working at a TV station, one thing I can guarantee you, this has happened at every station I've ever been at. Most recently, the one I'm at, we air General Hospital in the afternoon. When there's severe weather in the area and there are like tornadoes around and we cut in to General Hospital, our poor receptionist, you don't take people's stories.
Nope.
For AEW wrestling fans, Joe Biden. Somebody tweeted at him. Like he even looks at it anyway. But
Jay, I had a guy. I read the article earlier today too. I had a guy on Twitter say that the reason that the picture of Jungle Boy and Drew McIntyre was taken off of, he was deleted from his Twitter, was because Punk got butthurt and said he had to take it down. I saw on multiple wrestling pages that CM Punk greenlit the picture before Drew took it, because they wouldn't have had Drew take the picture if CM Punk was offended by it. And he was like, oh, no, well. So I posted the thing. I posted at the person. I said, listen, this is it. This is what they said. And they said, oh, so like a wrestling outlet can't be wrong? What? And then he blocked me. I didn't even get a chance to respond. He blocked me. I put him in his place. He was like, oh, so a wrestling page can't be wrong. And then he blocked me. You can't fucking talk to these fucking people. They are the reason AEW will never, ever, ever get an expanded audience. Because the sickos that Tony books for this is the sickos that we're talking about. These are the people who are tweeting at Joe Biden to not have his press conference, and he was announcing, that he was supporting Kamala on Wednesday because it interferes with Dynamite's ratings. Some guy spewing his retort because, Punk had him take down the picture. Really? Because there was multiple sources that said that's not the case. You can't have a reasonable conversation with these nut jobs, because if you say just the littlest, slightest negative comment about AEW, they jump down your throat like you don't know what the hell you're talking about. I still remember when Kat Dennings was like, hey, I kind of like Monday Night Raw. Maybe I could get sucked into WWE. And all the AEW fans, oh, no, that's not wrestling. You need to watch Okada and Omega in the Tokyo Dome. You need to watch this match from New Japan. You need to watch this match from... She never talked about wrestling again.
Yes.
AEW will never expand as long as their fans are the way that they are. I could sit here and talk...
Their owner, who, 2 or 3 months ago, said that WWE was Harvey Weinstein, and then this week comes out, yeah, I could see where we could work together and do something that's mutually beneficial. No, not after what you said.
This is also the same week that he came out and said that the WWE PR is the one that said it was a done deal with his deal with the WB to get the new contract too. He needs to get off the coke. He's got to stop channeling his true father, Herb Abrams. And he just needs to shut the fuck up. He just needs to shut the fuck up. Let's be serious. He needs to shut up. The Bucks just need to go away forever. I don't care where. You keep mentioning, Pluto. Maybe that's not even far enough for the Bucks to go for them to be far enough away.
They've been talking about colonizing the moon. Then maybe like one of them will super kick the other one off the moon, and then they'll just be floating in space the rest of their life.
My favorite part about that whole thing when Tony Khan said, "Hey, I'd love to do a collaboration with WWE, kind of like an ultimate forbidden door." And I think it was NoDQ.com was like, "What's a match you'd like to see if they did that?" I said, "I want to see Brock Lesnar fight a 2-on-1 handicap match against the Young Bucks, and it not be just a wrestling match and end up being a shoot fight. And I want Brock Lesnar to beat the holy hell out of Nick and Matt Jackson." I'm sorry. Their fans, they have not done anything because let's be real. Them doing their little stupid victory lap inside the ring in Chicago after they got their biggest draw fired. And then the freaking numbers have been in the toilet ever since. Yeah, you can sit there and applaud the fact that you got almost 900,000 people for your 250th episode of Dynamite. But the fact is that year over year, at the same time, every year, for the last couple of years, your numbers have been in the toilet. 2 years ago, Dynamite did over 1 million views. It didn't even get 900. They don't even think it broke 800. Could be wrong. But Tony needs to lay off the crack. Or coke, sorry.
Maybe it's both.
I'm sorry, Herb Abrams.
One door that may get opened wide open. There is a rumor for now of having a full TNA versus NXT premium live event.
Just inject it into my veins. Give me what I want. Give me what I want.
Joe Hendry.
Give me the Rascals. Give me Joe Hendry. Give me Chris Bay and Ace Austin. Give me Frankie Kazarian. Give me the guys that I actually know and actually enjoy in Impact.
Nick
and TNA.
Nemeth.
Give me the new TNA World Champion Dolph Ziggler, baby. Although he says it's not going to probably happen, which is it's a shame. I'd love to see. That would be the greatest thing. It would be the greatest thing to watch Nick Nemeth enter WWE as Nick Nemeth, the TNA World Heavyweight Champion.
One thing I've liked about the announcers lately is they will actually say, "Oh, yes, they used to be so-and-so in this other organization." Like, they could introduce him as Nick Nemeth, but when he was here, you knew him as Dolph Ziggler. I enjoy that they, now finally acknowledge them. See what I did there?
Just not AJ Francis.
Yep, 12 years. 12 years. Did nothing.
AJ Francis, the flop dollar, has been whatever it was. He's in TNA.
Oh,
Joe Hendry had his little concert in the ring, and they kind of blacked out AJ Francis for being in the shot. I just want to know if they're actually, who I would love to see? This would be the ultimate, holy shit, yeah, Vince is definitely not back, is if PCO shows up. But then he has to do the thing, and they got to bring back, Jacques Rougeau, and he can't just be PCO, the freak that he has become. No, they need to bring back Jacques Rougeau, and for one night only, they need to reunite the Quebecers because they're the Mounties, and they always get their man. If I have learned anything in the 35 plus years of being a wrestling fan, is that the Mountie always gets his man. Whether people disagree with me or not online, that's neither here nor there. I'm just telling you from my experiences, the Mountie always gets his man.
Okay.
You can't do this to me. You can't do this to me. I'm going to watch that again. Oh, by the way, speaking of watching something again, I did happen to catch the main
Class
event
13.
I wish. I'm probably going to have to at some point anyway. I did happen to catch the main event of WrestleMania 5 from Trump Tower.
Trump Plaza.
I apologize. I'm not giving myself my brainless this week. I got something very good. It's etched in stone this week. If I could have wrote it in blood, I would have.
Okay.
But then I would have been on Dynamite. But
yeah.
Speaking of blood, yes, Hulk Hogan did bleed at WrestleMania 5.
In fact, Jesse Ventura said profusely a few times.
However, after watching the main event of WrestleMania 5, him saying that Hogan bleeding profusely was not only that an overstatement, but the fact that Hulk Hogan in front of the entire Republican Party at the RNC saying he bled like a stuffed pig in front of Donald Trump is also a fabrication. Because he had a little cut. He had a little cut over his eye, and he did not.
Better source for truth than Hulk Hogan. We learned that from the Gawker trial.
Jay, that's like saying that I want to learn how to make steaks from a vegan. There's no better truth teller than Hulk Hogan.
400 days in a year, brother.
Nobody's more truthful than Hulk Hogan.
Nobody.
One of these times, we are definitely going to dedicate an entire episode of the podcast to the great lies of Hulk Hogan. Just because there's so many of them. And the best part about Hulk Hogan and his lies is that as long as he has a breath in his lung, he is still going to find a way to lie about something.
I mean, the one about the kid at SummerSlam and then, spreading it even further and talking about the album him and Jimmy Hart released that went to #1 and paid for the kid's medical bills. That one is a new one in the lexicon of the Hulkster's world.
The thing about me with his lies that always sticks out for me is the fact that I actually believed one of them for well over 20 years. The one where everybody's like, oh yeah, he tore every ligament in his back when he slammed the Giant. I was like, yeah, I can see that. Andre's a big dude. No, he didn't tear shit in his back when he slammed Andre.
He was 900 pounds that day, brother. 900
pounds. And he died, or he was 700 pounds and died 9 days later.
Yeah.
I hate to break it to you. #1, you didn't tear every ligament in your back, Hogan.
There are no ligaments in your back.
Exactly. #2, Hogan. Andre did not weigh 700 pounds when you slammed him. 500 probably, 500 plus probably.
They announced him at 525.
And most importantly, and I cannot stress this enough, the only wrestler in the entire card of WrestleMania 3 that can safely say without a doubt that they killed their opponent within days of beating him at WrestleMania is King Kong Bundy.
Not wrong.
Just saying.
All right, Chris Brown has a dynamite idea. Tim said that their sources of truth tag team, Hulk Hogan and Donald Trump, and their manager are truth. That way, he could be the manager of his childhood hero's childhood hero.
Now, have we confirmed that John Cena's favorite wrestler growing up was Hulk Hogan?
There's no official confirmation, at least from me. But I'm going to just say that Hulk Hogan was his favorite.
I mean, this is just coming from somebody else who grew up as a Hulkamaniac. But I'm also discussing this with somebody who I know grew up as an Ultimate Warrior fan.
I am.
And there was another bunch in our generation that grew up as Randy Savage fans. And a good chunk that were Roddy Piper fans, and a good chunk that were trying to think of who else was back then that was
I mean, Bret Hart was around, Mr. Perfect was around, yeah, Nature Boy,
Rick Rude, Sting, Lex Luger. You had a lot of big names back then to be a fan of. It wouldn't surprise me if Hogan was John Cena's favorite wrestler, because Hogan's The Rock's favorite wrestler. Finally.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
So another person that allegedly has been extended by AEW is one Bryan Danielson or Daniel Bryanson. Tony Khan did not say like if there were years, if anything's officially been signed on dotted line, but it sounded like Daniel Bryanson is going to be in AEW for some time to come. Now, he did say, Daniel Bryanson, that is, that his time as a full-time performer in the ring is coming to a close, I think, this year. So maybe he just takes more duties on behind the scenes with Collision, being a producer, things like that. Good for Danielson. I mean, he wants to have a life at home. If he went back to WWE, even as a non-in-ring performer, he would be on the road far more than he would be with AEW. So
correct. And I know he's dealing with some neck issues, and that's unfortunate. And I guess it means that we're not going to be getting the Daniel Bryan versus John Cena during the John Cena farewell tour.
Sad.
Although, if for some weird, strange reason, they could work out something and AEW can send one person to wrestle John Cena during his farewell, it's got to be Edge. I'm sorry. It's got to be Edge. One of John Cena's 2 or 3 greatest rivals was Edge. He needs that match with Edge. He's going to get it with Orton. There's no question. It's just a matter of when he's going to fight Orton as opposed to if he's going to fight Orton during his farewell.
I mean, The Miz wants a match, too.
I mean, it makes all the sense in the world for R-Truth to have it, too.
He should be in a tag team, and they should win the tag team championships.
I wouldn't be surprised if Cena's final run was as a heel. Everybody's like, could you imagine if he came out at for that first Raw of the Netflix era and he comes out as the Doctor of Thugonomics and it's like, this is his swan song. He's going to come out the way he came into made a name for himself in the business. I can't really say made it into the business because...
Yeah, he would prototype.
Ruthless aggression.
Yeah. All right.
But you did mention AEW. This week, we finally got the debut of former NWA Women's Champion Camille, and she will be the Big Daddy Cool Diesel to Mercedes Moné's Shawn Michaels. Thoughts on Camille forming a partnership with Mercedes?
I think it's good for Mercedes because it will take the onus off her because she's highly unlikable. I think it's good. I think they should add another person to the group, Marco Stunt, and she could be the heavy for him too.
Jay, they could hire me and I would be the heavy for Marco Stunt because even after all the weight I lost, I still got Marco Stunt by at least 50 pounds.
Right. But it's good. Camille is a talent. We've seen many talent wasted. I mean, when they brought Saraya in, it's like, all right, we got somebody who can wrestle, who's been able to tell stories, who's been able to work on the mic. There's no way that they're going to mess this up. And just when you think he can't get any dumber,
he goes and does something like this and still doesn't redeem himself. Now, this was when was in charge of WWE. They botched an already made storyline. They botched Daniel Bryanson versus The Miz. It should have been the easiest story to tell, and they told it in such a poor fashion, and they had a lackluster SummerSlam match, and they're like, all right, no reason to keep this going. And it's because Vince messed with it. All you needed was the two of them to just keep on doing what they did when it was smack talk. Yep.
That's all they needed to do. and Vince messed it up.
Gee, when have we had that conversation before where Vince actually went and screwed something up, huh? We've never said that.
But the thing was, that was a surefire thing. That was a long-term storyline that should have been the easiest, like, slam dunk in the world. Should have been. Yeah. Saraya coming back into the ring. The internet wrestling community loved that woman.
Yeah, especially the ones that found her on Pornhub.
Badly wanted to see her back in the ring.
Right.
And she was not getting offered that opportunity in WWE, and they just absolutely botched what should have been an easy comeback. We're glad you're back. Let's do something great. They screwed that up. They screwed up the stuff with Britt Baker. They're trying to rectify that now. But I hope he's learned his lesson. I hope they start booking these things better. But I mean, clearly with the rest of the booking, no, that doesn't seem to be the case. Does not seem to be the case.
It's because he doesn't know how to book a women's division.
He doesn't know how to book.
Yes, but I guess I can't give him the benefit of the doubt, can I?
It's tough at this point, even though, according to, your favorite at PWI. No, is it PWI?
Are you talking about the Wrestling Observer newsletter?
Wrestling Observer.
Wait, hold on.
He's been the best booker. Best booker.
You can't take what Meltzer says with a grain of salt. It's been as blatantly obvious over the last few months that he is a freaking AEW homer. And nothing proved it to me more than when it was Kalani Jordan versus Sol Roca at the NXT takeover thing that they did. I forget which one it was, where they wrestled for the Women's North American Championship. Excellent match if you haven't seen it. And he was like, yeah, this just looks like two women who choreographed their thing. And it was just staged and looked phony and everything. And I'm like, they did the bit from Ospreay and Ricochet that I'm sure you gave 9.5 stars to while you jerked off to it, Meltzer. Just admit that you hate WWE so we can all get on with our lives. AJ Styles even said it best. We don't wrestle matches for a goof for his star ratings, and then Meltzer goes, "Oh, that's AJ can't be saying." Fuck you, Meltzer. God damn, like you're an enabler. You're an enabler. I don't listen to anything that Wrestling Observer newsletter says, and I don't listen to anything that Fightful says, because both companies are in Tony Khan's back pocket. So you can't take anything that Meltzer says with a grain of salt. You can't agree with anything that Alvarez says. Sean sucks sap. Come on, please. Hillbilly fuck. I mean, they have
back in a minute.
Yeah, you're fine. You got all these people, like the fact that Will Washington, who was working for Fightful, is now working for AEW behind the scenes. It's like they're the ones who are feeding all of this information, all this misinformation to Tony Khan. So Tony Khan thinks that WWE is doing all this stuff. Their PR is announcing that, the false ratings were from WWE. Somebody from there was the one that was saying that we scored that low of a rating on Rampage or Collision, whatever the hell it was. They're the ones that are saying that, WWE was the ones that were saying that it was a done deal with the WB, or they were talking about the deal that they were trying to get with the WB for the new contract for AEW. The man sounds like a lunatic. And honest to goodness, it's because people are feeding him this shit. It's because Dave Meltzer is so lost in his ways. How the fuck Kurt Angle has 0 5-star matches in his entire career when Will Ospreay just breathes and gets 4.5 stars? It's just asinine. Dude gets out of bed and gets 5 stars. Kenny Omega and Okada in the Tokyo Dome gets 3 million stars. Because this is what Meltzer is. Meltzer just doesn't like the fact that WWE didn't treat him the way that he wanted to get treated. So, of course, he's going to go and deal with the freaking the child, the man-child with the coke addiction and the substantial amount of money that he is getting paid from his dad to run this shit. He enables, Alvarez enables, the fools from Fightful all enable. It's just bad. And I can't see how people can take this dude with any kind of seriousness anymore. Meltzer's just a scab on the world of professional wrestling because he does absolutely nothing to enhance the product. He's part of the reason for the tribalisticness between AEW fans and WWE fans. By the way, anytime an AEW fan calls a WWE fan an e-drone, come on, really? That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Calling us e-drones. You got to get a little bit more creative than that. Ugh. But honestly, like, Meltzer has lost all of his credibility. The fact that he just doesn't know what the hell he's doing, what he's talking about anymore, is just a bad look for professional wrestling. Why people give him... I've never paid for his stupid articles. Bill Apter's a better wrestling writer than frickin' Dave Meltzer ever was.
Yeah.
I'm just... It's just ridiculous. Why pander? Why? What's the point of pandering? Jay, what's the point of why is Meltzer sitting there just stroking the ego of freaking Tony Khan? Why, to make him feel better? Because they're the ones that are feeding him this shit. They're the ones that are feeding him this misinformation, and they're like, yeah, this is good. This is exactly what it needs to be. WWE is the one because WWE bad, Tony. It's just mind-blowing. Because him and Fightful do absolutely nothing to stop the tribalistic, activities of the fans. Ugh.
Wait.
And rant. Talking about AEW and Dave Meltzer gives me freaking gets me all fired up. Ugh.
So one thing we have not touched on yet is what is going on with MVP and Bobby Lashley.
I've heard mixed reports.
I have two. One of which sounds like that they're trying to lowball Lashley, which feels like they don't really want to keep him around. I could understand from a business perspective if you're trying to get younger, having he's in incredible shape, but what is he, 48 years old?
He's almost 50, yeah.
So, hey, he's had a good run. One thing that I find interesting is he's been out for quite a while with injury. Why wouldn't that be because they're saying that his current deal is up soon. Well, if he's been injured for the last 6 months, why isn't that being tacked on? But, they've taken him off the internal roster, but there's been nothing officially reported out there from the company. So until they officially report that, I'm not going to take too much of this with a grain of salt. It does seem like MVP's doing things to try to jumpstart any possible activities outside of WWE. One thing, though, WWE does own the trademark to the name Hurt Business. That doesn't mean they couldn't call it something like the Hurt Locker or the Big Hurt or something like that, because you got one Shelton Benjamin out there too.
Yeah. Funny how AEW didn't want Shelton Benjamin, but if Bobby Lashley and MVP are attached to him, oh yeah, we definitely want them.
Yeah, they need another faction.
Oh, of course they do. They only have 309 of them. And that's not even including whatever QT Marshall has up his sleeve.
I mean, he is like one of the fittest men in the world. He did win
Allegedly.
that bodybuilding competition. But, again, Lashley has had a good run. I think that there have been a couple of things that just didn't work in his favor. Like, he had the injury. Then he was supposed to have a WrestleMania match with Bray Wyatt. And that's like when he was starting to build back up again. And then he got injured. And that's what happens when you get older. You get injured a little bit more. Body takes longer to heal. Again, still in phenomenal shape. I think still could be an asset whether he stays in WWE or goes elsewhere. Quite honestly, at this point, I wouldn't mind seeing him go back to TNA.
Oh, me too. I would love to see him in TNA.
I mean, certainly Tony Khan would pay him.
I just don't know what you're going to get out of a nearly 50 Bobby Lashley. And this is coming from somebody who's a fan of Bobby Lashley's. I've enjoyed his second run in WWE very much. I enjoyed his first run in WWE, and I enjoyed his work in Impact TNA too. You're not going to get a hell of a lot out of him. MVP is also 50, and he's got like knee issues that he had, like the stem cells, I think, put in his knee or some kind of special treatment he's had in his knee. And Shelton Benjamin, as much as I love Shelton Benjamin, the dude's almost 50. I'm not saying that if I saw him back in WWE tonight on SmackDown, I wouldn't lose my mind, because I would, because I love Shelton Benjamin. But you're not going to get much out of them because they're kind of a little bit older. That's all. This is not a slight on any of them, because I am a fan of Shelton, I'm a fan of MVPs, and I'm a fan of Bobby Lashley. And if they found a way to kind of make like the pain business or something like that, yeah, I'd be on board with whatever the hell they do. I'm not going to watch them if they're in AEW, but
hey. But what they would have to do, I think that it'd have to be similar to how the Spooky Pals started, where you had a couple of older people, and it's like they need somebody young, and they brought in Rhea Ripley. So if they tried to go out and tried to reform, their old faction, they would need a younger person with them. If they went to AEW, have like Swerve Strickland be part of it. But Swerve's already carved out his own thing.
Hobbs.
There you go.
But they could do the same thing with TNA. They could go to TNA and they could bring in Moose. Are you kidding me? Moose is a big boy too. Ooh.
Yeah. You don't get called Moose for being small.
Yeah. But like I'm not easily impressed with people. I'm impressed by that dude. I've been checking a lot, and power to WWE and TNA for this partnership. Everybody's saying that this partnership has been bad. I don't think so. I've never been more fully vested in TNA in my entire life than I am right now. Except for when AJ Styles and Joe and Abyss and Eric Young were all there together in like the mid 2000s when I was actually, tuning in, and I actually got a pay-per-view. I've enjoyed this. They have a lot of good talent, and I think if they book it correctly, it's good stuff, because I'm vested in this. I've had notes multiple weeks with TNA in it. I'm a casual for them. I'm a diehard for the WWE, so this is a good thing for me. I need another outlet. I need to watch some other type of wrestling, and it's not like I'm going to get it on like Wednesdays at 8 or Fridays at 10 or Saturdays at 8 o'clock.
You could get it every day on Peacock.
I can get it every day on Peacock, and I have a guarantee. I can almost guarantee I'm going to watch Clash 13 at some point too.
Yes.
The room of wrestling shows. It's so bad that it's good.
Yes. Another small note I want to add in here. I don't know if he's technically an AEW superstar or a Ring of Honor superstar at this point. Brian Cage is acting as He-Man in a fan film. This fan film is like a sequel. Like his costuming looks absolutely garbage. It looks awesome. I really want to see this. He-Man 2 with Brian Cage. What do when you think of He-Man and think of Brian Cage, like, it fits for me. I grew up watching He-Man, and I watched the He-Man, not only the TV show, but I watched the movie with Ivan Drago in it as He-Man. I could not see Ivan Drago as He-Man after what he did to Apollo Creed. I just couldn't. Couldn't do it. But Brian Cage here, I could take him as Prince Adam and then turning into He-Man.
See, that's where you and I differentiate on. See, I have a problem. Like, for me, the only problem I have when it comes to, like, I can't see Dolph Lundgren being He-Man after what he did to Apollo Creed is the same thing, like, after watching what the Guard did in the Shawshank Redemption and is now Mr. Krabs. Or the fact that Ironmonger was the dude. That's all I got to say on that. I honestly, I'm
Jeff
sorry.
Bridges is the GOAT.
Yes, Jeff Bridges is the GOAT. I'm not going to argue Jeff Bridges is the GOAT, and his dad, Lloyd Bridges, was also a tremendous GOAT.
Yes. Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
You beat me to it, you son of a bitch.
Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit amphetamines.
Picked a hell of a week to quit drinking.
Or the Hot Shots movie, or Mafia.
Oh God, Mafia.
That was Lloyd Bridges' last movie.
Oh my God, that was such a terrible, funny movie. I don't care what anybody says. I will watch Mafia, no questions asked. It's one of the few movies. It's a guilty pleasure movie for me.
Dad, you lost a lot of blood, but we found most of it. Or Mommy, you smell nice. I had cantaloupe for lunch.
When he's out there and he does the scene from The Godfather where Marlon Brando puts the lemon
with the watermelon.
and he puts up a boogie woogie.
Boogie, boogie. My grandson Chucky.
Oh man, that's such a good movie. Such a terrible good movie. I don't care.
I love that movie.
I
would not even call it terrible. It's great.
It's better than The Room, as in it's not as bad as The Room, but it's so good that it's not bad.
The scene where Vincenzo Cortino has swam across the Atlantic Ocean and he gets up on the pier and he's like, he swam across the Atlantic Ocean, of course. And he's got nets around him, like anything and everything you could think of.
Covered in seaweed.
Vincenzo Cortino was a man-child. Was a man-child.
Oh.
And then when he asked what ended up being his best friend, a rooster's on the top of a roof, and he lays an egg. Which corner does the egg fall off the roof? And his friend's like, the left. No, the right. I'm sorry, my friend. Roosters don't lay eggs. And they both look at the camera and go, and he's like, and stay in school. So
such a good movie. I'm sorry. For me with Brian Cage, it's like, what has he's another one, like, what has he done? And I was a huge fan of his when he was in Lucha Underground. I love that shit. And I even said it when he was in Lucha Underground. I'm like, my God, Vince McMahon would freaking bend over backwards and eat his own shit to get Brian Cage because he's a big, meaty man who beats the shit out of people. So he fits Vince's, profile, what he's looking for. And now we've seen him in AEW for the last few years. And the most memorable thing of Brian Cage's run in AEW was when he finally got his action figure at Target and was paying for it at the registers, and the cashier no-sold it that he was actually buying his own action figure. He's like, dude doesn't even know I'm buying my own action figure. Well, Brian Cage, to be fair, what have you done in AEW, dude?
To be fair.
It's like I can sit there and I can do this for a lot of people, and it's like, okay, what has Elias done? Well, He got the most toxic nuclear heat ever when he was in Seattle with him and Kevin Owens in the ring. Kevin Owens beat John Cena in his first match and became the United States champion.
Kevin Owens has the Guinness Book World Record for most cakes eating in one sitting.
I still remember
right next to Andre the Giant drinking the most beers in one sitting.
That's actually the most accurate thing too. That Andre the Giant has the world record for most beer consumed in one sitting.
And not even a close second is Wade Boggs.
Yes, but he also drank 70 beers and went 3 for 5 against Seattle the next day. The GOAT, Wade Boggs. He might be a scumbag, but he's still the GOAT.
Right.
But, you think about it, all these wrestlers have had these, impressive things. What has Brian Cage done? I mean, honestly, what has anybody done in AEW? I mean, MJF has become a star. I mean, Swerve Strickland has become a star. But, what was the memorable thing that the Young Bucks did? Besides get their biggest draw fired. That's
Exploding
the problem.
sneakers.
That's the problem and the difference between AEW and WWE is that AEW is very much action-packed. The fact that there was more action in the Will Ospreay MJF Iron Man match on Dynamite last week than the entire 3 hours of Raw. There was more wrestling on that one match than an entire episode of Raw last week. But where's the substance? We need to be entertained. There's more ways of being entertained. It's one thing when, Geronimo Joe is going up against, Brian Cage Jr. It's another thing when it's like Dom and Ray, and it's like, okay, Dom and Ray are, there's all this friction because Dom's showing up to all these family gatherings and bringing Rhea Ripley around, and they're just harassing Ray and beating him up, and his wife is getting all upset. You got to have something behind it because without the story, the wrestling matches don't matter because there's nothing behind it.
Mm.
Look at some of the best stories they told in AEW. Who was behind some of the best stories they told in AEW?
Cody
Rhodes, MJF, CM Punk.
And one of Cody Rhodes' old storylines did come into the news again this week because for, I think it's Call of Duty, they actually had playable WWE characters. And Cody Rhodes, his character, took up a gun, and Arn Anderson said, finally, Cody has taken my advice.
Glock Anderson?
Going back to that promo from, I think it was 2021, where he was like, yep, Cody, you would allow yourself to be carjacked. But when they open the door for me, I'd take out my Glock and put their brains onto the pavement.
To be fair, I'd be more intimidated by Arn Anderson if he said he was going to hit me with a spine buster than if he pulled a Glock on me.
And what's with this in Joe Burrow? Joe Burrow following Homelander, following Cody, going blonde.
I couldn't tell if he was trying to channel his inner Cody Rhodes or inner Slim Shady. Because I saw the picture and I'm like, wait, what's Joe Burrow doing here? I don't get it. I mean, I remember when I tried doing it, my hair came out looking like a tennis ball, but, that was the last time I dyed my hair blonde, by the way.
Mm.
But, that was an interesting look. I just love the fact that Cody was like, okay, Joey B, now it's time for you to finish your story. And I'm glad you also mentioned Cody because they've been in Japan doing this tour for WWE. And, we got to see Asuka return. She wasn't in the ring because I don't think she's been medically cleared, but it's great to see Asuka because she's a GOAT.
Yes.
But during this tour in Japan, they had Cody in the ring and they presented him with his dad's robe and hat from I think it was the big orange or red robe with the
red one, hat. Yeah.
And he put it on and they gifted it to him and he wore it and I was like, man, I miss Dusty. I really do. He was such an underappreciated star.
In WWF, yes.
Yes. But in just an incredible, incredible wrestling mind. There's not too many people in the industry all time that I would love to pick the brain of if they were still around, it would be Dusty. Dusty would be right near the top of my list. I would love to just talk wrestling with Dusty Rhodes.
Who else could get polka dots over?
Stardust. The Rhodes family, for what it's worth, the Rhodes family has taken a lot of shit over the years and has turned it into gold. Dusty Rhodes got polka dots.
Like Gold Dust.
Yeah, Gold Dust. Dusty
Literally.
Rhodes got Gold Dust over. Like, my God. It was such a great... And nobody, and I will still say this to this day, nobody would have gotten over the Stardust gimmick like Cody did. I don't care how much he hated it. Nobody, and I mean nobody, would have gotten it as good as he did. I enjoyed Stardust. I know he hated it, but I enjoyed Stardust. Because it was a different...
Cody Rhodes.
I mean, he's incredible. He deserves this. He deserves this. He's been busting his ass. He's gotten over a lot of shit gimmicks. This would just be like if Terry Taylor got fed up with being the Red Rooster and actually went and did something in WCW and then came back to WWE as, terrific Terry Taylor. Okay, maybe Stardust wasn't nearly as bad as the Red Rooster. I'll give him that.
Yeah, I mean, that's dive into a deep depth. That's deeper than the deep on the boys going into the ocean to have sex with an octopus.
I still have to get caught up on season 4 or 5, whatever's the newest season.
4.
And I'm sorry, every time I think of the deep, I think of that scene where they're trying, I think it was the dolphin that he was trying to save in the van, and they get stopped and the dolphin goes flying through the... I swear, Jay, I've never laughed harder in my life on a TV show. Yeah, I'm sorry, no. The only other time was when Al Bundy was trying to install his satellite dish on the roof of his house. And he's hanging there and just trying to install it. The Crazy Ahmed said that it's so easy, even a shoe salesman can do it. That's the best part, Peg. It says it right on the box. So easy installation. Shoe salesman can do it. Only other time I ever laughed that hard. I died at that point, at that scene when the dolphin went flying through the windshield because I'm messed up in the head. What do you want from me?
I think the last time I laughed that hard was when you mentioned that somebody tweeted at Joe Biden not to ruin AEW's numbers.
The worst part is, Jay, it wasn't even an actual fan. It was somebody from one of the wrestling pages. One of the wrestling purists people tweeted at him. And I don't remember, because I follow so many different wrestling accounts on Twitter. So I have no idea if it was like the cringe wrestling page, or if it was AEW neckbeards, or if it was Robert O'Neill, or one of the many wrestling pages I follow on Twitter. That's basically not what I follow. It's just that in sports accounts.
Yeah.
So that way, the only thing that really gives me agita when I go onto Twitter is every time the Red Sox lose 20-7.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they did to Colorado. Bunch of bums.
Still doing better than expected.
They're gonna fall apart like a cheap suit in August, and we're gonna be like, oh great, I'm so glad that we got James Paxton back.
Anyway,
but and another thing, since we were on the subject of AEW, and we did mention MJF. MJF did win the International Independent, whatever the hell the AEW European Championship is. And this week, he turned it into the American Championship.
This is now the third iteration of this one title.
Yeah. Because I think it was the Continental Champion, and now it became the International Champion, or whatever I don't even freaking know. I All Atlantic or whatever. I don't even remember what the freaking names were. But yes, he's turned it into the United States Championship for AEW.
Good. It looks good. But I don't know if this is his, I'm just making the belt how I want it to be, and because he's a heel, that's what it is, or if this is like a permanent change. Is this like the hemp belt? the perhaps second greatest championship ever made. Just because of the gimmick in WWE history, after the Winged Eagle, the hemp belt.
Fickle. One of the greatest runs. I don't care what anybody says. That was one of the greatest runs Bryan Danielson ever had.
Stop that! No!
That's kind of where I get the thing where I go like this. That's where I get that from, is when he's doing the thing with Buddy Murphy and Eric Rowan in the back, and he's just like this to Buddy Murphy. That's exactly where I get that from. I'm not even gonna lie. That's exactly where I stole it from. Really? I just then he came out and he tweeted out like they had to change it because we kicked the Redcoats' ass like 200 some odd years ago, and I'm like, of course you did. You had to mention the fact that we beat the Brits, 248 years ago, and then you did it again. So those damn Redcoats. I mean, haven't they suffered enough? I mean, they took the biggest L in world history, 248 years ago when the United States kicked their ass.
Yeah.
Because we're the greatest country. Well, we were
America.
The greatest country. Yeah, the greatest country. We were the greatest country of all time at one point.
America.
But I don't like I don't know. I don't like the title as much, Jay. I think it's kind of a little much. Just a little much.
That's what MJF is.
But it's that's true. See, I would have preferred if he were to take the title and give it the same design, like the belt design of like his scarf, and then made it the MJF, international, independent, all natural, whatever the hell it is, championship that they call it now.
The Salt of the Earth title.
I mean, and if that's the case, then I need somebody like Pentagon or Rey Fenix to win the title from him, and then they could turn it into the Mexico Championship.
Yeah.
And just that's what they should do. Like every time somebody from outside of the U.S. wins the title, in whatever country they represent, just make that the championship.
Yeah, and make Canadian championship for when Jinder Mahal comes in and wins it from MJF.
They could turn it into the Saudi championship when Mansoor wins.
Yeah. I mean, Mansoor is already Ring of Honor. He and Marseille. And they're continuing their male model ways. I don't think they're titillating any senses down there, but that's all right.
He doesn't look. Does he look dead inside still, like he did with the tennis outfit that he wore?
Less.
Okay, that's a big thing.
Yeah, it probably sad for him. He's like, this was the gimmick that was most over that I was a part of, and now I have to live with this. Gotta live with it.
I was about to say it could always be worse, but no, it can't.
Not much. At least he wasn't wearing a cutout plate on his face.
I was to say he didn't have to dye the tip of his hair red and start clucking.
Yeah, didn't have to do that.
He could have been like what the Undertaker almost was, as Eggman.
Eggman, yeah. Could have been a trash man.
Why are you going to bring Duke Joshi into this? What has he ever done to you? Just because A, he made me look like a fool at WrestleMania 17 because I was actually the only person dumb enough to. No, Rob, seriously, you might want to consider changing your pick. I think it's going to be Duke Joshi. No, it's not going to be Duke Joshi. It's going to be somebody other than Duke Joshi. Trust me. My friends tried to warn me and I didn't listen. That's on me.
Duke
Number two.
Joshi.
I don't care how long his entrance song has been on YouTube, that there's only 10,000 people that have actually tuned into that. I'm actually more impressed that there were 10,000 people that actually tuned into his song. It's just the sound of a garbage truck going down the street with some generic bullshit rock music in the background. As Duke Joshi comes off the back of the truck and throws your garbage in the truck.
Yep.
I don't care what anybody says. That man looked like my garbage man from when I was living in Bristol.
Yep.
Because it wouldn't just be a regular garbage man. He had to be a Bristol garbage man too.
It would be great.
Yeah.
All right. That's what I got for my notes. You got anything else?
Really quickly, do you want to talk a little bit about the UK WrestleMania possibility?
I mean, we can.
I thought it was interesting that Tony Khan, oh my God, Nick Khan and Triple H were in England, the UK, to promote a possibility of a WrestleMania, something that I know you've been saying for years that you would love to see WWE do a WrestleMania in the United Kingdom. I think this is great. I really do hope that this is what it's going to lead to. What are your thoughts about WWE possibly doing a WrestleMania in the United Kingdom?
I think it's great. One, I would not have to stay up that late to watch it. Two, they used to do premium live events, pay-per-views, specifically because they got most of their money from the American pay-per-view market. So everything was tailored specifically to the American audience. They don't have that anymore. You pay for Peacock, or if you live abroad, you're paying for Netflix to get these premium live events.
Mm-hmm.
They've already got your money. They should put the shows where they want to. I know it costs them some more money to go overseas, but if you're trying to build this global brand, and it seems they again, all compliments to Nick Khan for saying, hey, let's go to stadiums, let's go to places we haven't really been. They're going to go nuts. It's going to be great. And it has been.
And it's WrestleMania. This is the Super Bowl professional wrestling that we're talking about here.
So as loud as we've seen them at these events, it will be even more so.
Oh, agreed.
I would say 100% do it. Do it, do it, do it. It's not going to hurt you financially in any way, shape, or form because people travel around the damn world to go to WrestleMania. These places are paying WWE several $1 million just to be able to get WrestleMania to their city. It's not going to cost them anything.
And you got to think that a lot of the people from Europe are the ones that are coming to the United States for WrestleMania. And they're part of the reason why the crowds are always hot at WrestleMania because they're part of just a nice melting pot of wrestling fans throughout the world just getting together and watching the show of shows.
So I'm completely on board for them doing the show in England. I clearly they've had a full slate of shows overseas this year. They're using the same model the NFL is using to expand football. It's like, yeah, we can't really have a team in Europe, but what we could do is we could have more games every year so we could get people to at least be fans of these teams. This is more realistic than them trying to put a team in London, England. It's like, who are they going to go against? If they were in the AFC East, whoever has to play them on those away games, that's brutal. And then for them, every time they would have to travel for any game, that's just brutal. You would almost have to come up with different little conferences that don't really mesh that much. And then they would have a grand game at the end, but you wouldn't have a season long enough to make that happen. And football hurts people too much.
Yeah.
But WWE is more or less borrowing from that model, but because they have more events, they could do more of the outside the U.S. stuff.
I agree. I 100% agree. And I would love to see it. And I'm with you too, because one of the best things about doing some of these shows all over the country, all over the world, is that they have different starting times. How great is it to be like, oh my God, it's 2:00 and Backlash is starting.
Yeah.
Or, SummerSlam is going to be starting or whatever. Just it's awesome. I've enjoyed that aspect of it because just like I've enjoyed them moving the pay-per-views from Sundays to Saturdays, I've also been enjoying them having the shows 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday, and it's like, oh shit, I still got the rest of the evening for whatever. Right. Instead of waiting until 8 o'clock to watch a 5-hour WrestleMania.
Right.
But yeah, I think this is a great move. This is a great slam dunk. They're going to make a shit ton of money off of this.
I mean, they've already announced Indianapolis for a future WrestleMania. Nothing can stop them from saying, yeah, we're going to have WrestleMania in London.
Yep, I agree.
So. All right.
That was my last tidbit, and I will say this. I am very proud of myself. I was actually able to compose a top 10 list.
Okay.
When I was completely I couldn't think of shit before I was struggling with just the regular notes, and I was like, I don't think I'm going to get a top 10. And it's just amazing when the creative juices flow at a time. So for this week, I have come up with the top 10 list. The top 10 things we wouldn't have if Vince McMahon was still in WWE. Number 10, we would not have DIY. Even though they are Triple H's favorite tag team and Triple H's 2 favorite people, we wouldn't have DIY. Number 9, Bull Nakano would not be a Hall of Famer. I believe that one with all of my heart. Number 8, the partnership with TNA would not be happening if Vince McMahon was still in charge. And on another note, very similar to that, number 7, we wouldn't be having wrestlers from WWE wrestling at other promotions. We wouldn't have gotten AJ Styles and Io Sky wrestling in Japan like we've gotten recently. That AJ Styles match with, I forget the dude's name, was just fantastic. I enjoyed it. All right, number 6. All of the celebrities that have been coming out of the woodworks on a regular basis. And I'm not saying that they don't get celebrities in WWE when Vince was there, but like Jalen Brunson and Tyrese Halliburton, who went at it in the playoffs, we're standing face to face in the ring with LA Knight. Yeah. The fact that Jason Kelsey helped Ray and who the hell the team that Ray was on beat the team that Dominic was on at WrestleMania. We wouldn't have gotten that. So I think that's another thing. So that's number 6. All the celebrities we'll be getting. Number 5, we definitely would not be getting a UK WrestleMania.
Right.
Number 4, and I cannot explain how much this is very important to me. Number 4, we wouldn't be having very good production if Vince McMahon was still there, because we all know that bucktooth beaver fucker Kevin Dunn would still be shaking the camera and doing all the stupid shit he does with the productions. That is the one thing that I've taken away the most that has made me the happiest about Vince McMahon being gone, is that fucking Bucky Beaver's gone, and the production and the quality of their shows have been so good. Now my top 3 are all wrestlers.
Okay.
Number 3, we wouldn't have Gunther. Gunther would not be fighting for the World Heavyweight Championship or have set the record for the longest reign as Intercontinental Champion if Vince was around, because Vince was on the verge of letting Gunther go before he stepped down the first time. That's all you need to know. If that wasn't enough for you, number 2, we wouldn't have CM Punk. CM Punk would probably be, God only knows what CM Punk would be doing. Probably something with the UFC as a broadcaster. But who knows? The best part about Vince being gone now is that CM Punk has come back, and he's a good soldier as of right now. So that's 2 through 10, Cousin Jay. Would you like to venture a guess, since I did say it was a professional wrestler, of what the one thing that we would not have if Vince McMahon was still in charge? Who is numero uno?
I don't know.
I will give you a hint, and I might give it away. If Vince McMahon was still around, either this man would still be titillating the senses, or he would have been all elite by now. And that is none other than number 1, L.A. Knight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Max Dupree was on the verge of being fired, Probably a better chance than Gunther was if Vince was still in charge. And now we're going to have LA Knight finish his story at SummerSlam when he beats that freaking no talent hack of a piece of shit Logan Paul for the United States Championship.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is my top 10. Yeah.
All right.
So I guess that means it's time for the good,
the bad,
and the brainless. All right, Cousin Jay, what do you got for your good this week?
I mentioned it earlier in the program. I have to go back to it. The Rhea Ripley and Dom video that I saw this week was fantastic. It titillated my senses, made me smile. It's fantastic. Check it out.
I'm definitely going to check out after the podcast. Because I definitely probably would have went with that too if I had seen it, but I did not. I am going to go with a different set of wrestlers who have been recording videos like that. And that is one DIY gets my good for this week. For the last few weeks, they've been recording themselves with Tommaso Ciampa. I know that there's going to be a certain F.M. Marks Hall of Famer who's not going to be happy about this. But Tommaso Ciampa has been trying for the last few weeks to RKO Randy Orton out of nowhere. And it's been funny as shit because the interaction between him and Gargano has been fun. And then he goes to hit the RKO, and because he's screaming out of nowhere before he hits the RKO, so Orton always misses. And even to the point where last week when he tried to hit Randy, with an RKO, he used his daughter, Tommaso Ciampa did, to distract him. But it was this week when Randy wasn't even there that I was like, I got to mention it. And he went to try to RKO Kevin Owens. And the fact that he goes and he runs over and he's screaming, oh, no, where? And he doesn't hit him. And Kevin Owens is like, were you really trying to RKO me? It was the first time in 8 years I didn't hate Kevin Owens. So take that for what it's worth. And it was actually pretty funny. And the whole thing with them and that whole Randy Orton thing has been, I've tuned in every week. I follow Johnny Gargano strictly just for that. So I have to give DIY my good for this week.
Okay.
What do you got for your bad?
I will have to also talk about the Gargano. Poor Mr. Gargano and his restaurant burning down right before SummerSlam. The fans descending upon Cleveland. That place would have been chock full, and the stuff they did in there with Adam Cole, baby, when he was in NXT, a handful of years ago, and that feud the two of them had, like, people would have wanted to go for that. People would just wanted to go to be in Johnny Gargano's dad's restaurant. And the fact that it burned down, that's just bummer. The dude's like, I think Johnny said his dad's like in his 80s.
82.
Good for him, still going. He's older than Biden and looks like more with it. But it's a bummer, though, that, his life's work burned down.
50 years.
Like, at this age, do you rebuild? Like, does Johnny or one of his, relatives want to take that on?
Right.
Because if I were 82, I'm like, you know what? Thank you, God. This is your sign to me.
I'm going to come out with my son now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that almost got my bad for this week, but I'm sorry. I have to give it to Tony Khan. You can't come out a few months ago and call WWE the Harvey Weinstein of professional wrestling, and then 3 months later say, yeah, I want to collaborate with them and have our own show, like we have our own super Forbidden Door. That and the fact, and I'm going to do this after the podcast too, like, if you've seen a picture of Tony Khan from 5 years ago and a picture of him what he looks like now, that's also bad because he looks like shit. Dude needs to lay off the coke and get a nap and maybe lessen some of that burden on him. But yeah, Tony Khan gets my bad for this week.
Okay.
What do you got for your brainless?
So during Blood and Guts, Jack Perry took a headshot. We don't need that. Absolutely unnecessary. We know what has happened to poor Mick Foley. Corey Graves tweeted, like, yeah, I no reason for this. Like, having these, like, memory lapses at my age, like I do, where I just go blank.
Yep.
Yeah, you know, too many accidental chair shots to the head. Unnecessary, not needed. Whoever decided that was okay, I'm clearly Jungle Boy probably had to give an okay to that. Just stupid and brainless.
I don't care how gimmicked the chair is. And I'm not going to say that Mark Briscoe was going to try to purposely injure Jungle Boy or anything like that. But we're talking about a situation where you're swinging a chair and you're swinging it at somebody's head. All it's going to take is just one little slight miscalculation, a slight head bump. I mean, we've seen it. We've seen the difference between somebody just jerking their head to the side off or not, and what could it lead to. They've been very adamant about the chair shots because, and they're like, oh, and that's another reason why I actually was upset with the AEW fans, because they're like, oh, it was a freaking gimmick chair, and that, and you can't prove that CTE comes from. I'm like, fuck you, man. It was unnecessary. I'm not even mad that because it was Jungle Boy, because if anybody really needed to have their brains scrambled all over the place, it was Jungle Boy, and I wasn't upset about that. It's the fact that it was an unnecessary spot that didn't even really need to happen. You know what? They had Chris Nowinski go. I believe it was Chris Nowinski went and he talked to the people from TNA and talked about the what has happened with the head injuries, and a lot of people in TNA was like, had a change of heart, and they were like, yeah, you know what? Maybe he's right. Maybe we don't need to have these kind of injuries anymore. We've seen what WWE has done when they've actually banned the chair shots. Look at all the freaking the fallout from when Cody took that chair shot from Shawn Spears 4 or 5 years ago. Right. They were all over that shit. This is why they keep calling you an indie mud show wrestling promotion, Tony Khan, because you allow this stupid shit to happen. I'm not mad that it was Jungle Boy that actually got clocked in the head. That was the only reason why it was almost not my brainless. But the fact is it was an unprotected chair shot. I don't care how gimmick the chair was. It was stupid and unnecessary in the situation. So I agree with you that was definitely, that was the first thing I wrote down. It was my brainless was the first thing I wrote down in my notes.
Yeah.
Because it was stupid and totally unnecessary.
Wait.
So if you like what you have seen, whether you are a first-time watcher or a continuous fan, make sure you like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to us on YouTube at the letter T, the letter H, the letter E, the letter F, the letter N, MARKS, the F and marks. If you like, follow, and subscribe to us, we will do the same back. That has always been our
mantra. And make sure you set up notifications so that when we go live, you will be notified that we are live, whether it's on the Facebooks, whether it's on the YouTubes, or whether it's on the X.
X gonna give it to you.
So you could join in the conversation and talk about our favorite sport we all love to hate, professional wrestling.
New York Jets. The joke will never get old for me.
Okay.
It's because I hate the Jets so much. But
all right.
Well,
I guess that is it.
I think we've covered all the bases.
Yeah.
We got our notes across. We did the top 10. We did our good, bad, brainless.
Yep. Absolutely.
I guess there's only one thing left to do. Take it away, Curtis Axel. That's right, Brainless One. And it's because today, July 26th of 2024, at an astonishing 3,470 days, I, after Mark's Hall of Fame record, is still alive in the 2015 Royal Rumble. 167 of everyone's favorite wrestling podcast, the F and Marks.
I'm Jay. He is.
I am the brainless one. Make sure you mark out.
With your guac out. See you, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in.
We'll see you next week.
Yeah.
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 Yeah.